Congratulations on this film. It was amazing. I loved this movie. And what I thought was so great about it is you never ever hear stories about the man who is looking, a single guy who decides, yeah, I want to have a kid, but I don't have anyone to have this kid with. I want a surrogate. Like, why not? Right? You always have it the other way. The woman's always looking. So what was it about this? Like, how did you think about this idea and then, put it on paper?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think I just was very curious what it would be like for two strangers to be in such an intimate circumstance, which was also integral to them each moving forward in their own lives. Like that's a lot of stuff to be tangled up in a complete stranger. And so I was just curious what that relationship might be like.
Yeah, and then so did you end up doing any type of research, like, and for people who actually have done this kind of thing?
I spoke to someone who had been a surrogate, but she was married and had her own children at the time that she was a surrogate, and a surrogate for a family out of state. So it was a very different circumstance, which was beneficial because I like to be very boundaried with my research. I don't
Yeah,
ever want to be taking anybody's story and using it for myself. So
sure. Yeah.
and I applied to be a surrogate and then like looked at surrogates as though I needed surrogates and just kind of went through like very basic uh
Yeah.
procedures or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, because it's like I said, it's such a unique story. And then, of course, the whole movie centers around these two characters pretty much. I mean, there's, outside characters, but for the most part, Ed and Patty, like they're the whole film. This is who we center on. Did you have them in mind when you wrote it, or how did the casting come about with the two of them?
I love how many people ask if I wrote it with them in mind because I think that's a real testament to their chemistry and their performances. So
Exactly.
every time I hear that, I just think, thanks, Ed, thanks, Patty.
Yeah, no, they work
Uh,
amazing well together for sure. That's why, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Ed came first. We like sent it off to Ed, and I was saying to my producing partner Anthony Brandonisio, who was involved with this film from day one. He's the first person I sent the script to. I was like, okay, but like, who are we gonna send it to? Like after Ed says no. And then Anthony called and was like, oh, Ed wants to have a coffee with you or whatever. And I was like, oh, really? Wow. And we just had a lovely, lovely meeting. And I think it was like very clear very early into the meeting that we were going to make the film together.
Yeah.
And then when I called Anthony to say, all right, like Ed's in, like basically the first thing I said was, I want Patty because I'd had her in mind. And so then we went to Patty and again had another really beautiful coffee. And yeah, I love and appreciate them both so much.
And so when they both met for the first time, because I'm guessing they probably didn't really know each other before, was it an instant chemistry with the two of them? Because it was just such a great relationship watching it grow too, So I was curious as to what it was like. I always wonder, you can never cast chemistry. You don't know, But
Yeah.
you lucked out with this one.
Yeah, we all had again yet another coffee. It's
Another
like
coffee.
so much coffee. So we had another coffee. And it's funny because it's kind of like a blind date. Like it feels like I'm setting up these two people that I know,
Right.
but then like I stay at the table and like evaluate how it's going, which is very funny.
Uh,
But yeah, it was just easy for us all to be together. I mean, it was a moment definitely where I was like, I can't believe that this is technically my job is to
right.
like sit here and have coffee with like Ed and Patty, because like they're also different generations of comedy. And
Exactly.
Patty's generation grew up with Ed's generation. And so it was so interesting to be seeing Patty with like a huge name from the generation of comedy that she grew up on. And then to see Ed like interacting with Patty, who's like completely different sense of humor and completely different vibe, but like informed from, or it was just
Yeah.
so, it was a really cool experience to be able to be like, I'm putting you two together, even if it had not gone any further than that. I think that coffee was really very cool.
Yeah.
But it was very easy for us all to be together, and we just clicked. And making the movie is not so unlike the journey in the film, because you're strangers, all of us, myself included,
Yes.
embarking on this like very intense, like intimate thing in a finite amount of time.
Yeah.
And every single day you're a lot closer than you were the day before, because
Yeah.
also
Tell me.
making a movie is kind of like a ship through stormy waters or something, and so it's just like you really click. But it
Right.
was fun to watch their relationship develop and evolve at the same time that Anna and Matt's relationship was developing and evolving.
Right.
It was a
I
really
don't,
nice experience.
yeah. And also, I mean, you only shot this, what, 17 days, right? So you guys have a schedule you got to follow, and it's, make,
Yeah, we did the bulk of the film, 17 days in Los Angeles, and then we went to San Francisco for a day and a half to do exteriors.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. So Castro Street, I saw that, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was neat to be there, like, even though we can't travel right now. Well, we can't, Canadians for sure, but it was nice. I want to go back to San Francisco. I love those outdoor walks that they had. I want to ask you your opinion about this, because when you work with funny people, and I just find this as just watching so many funny people over the years, and when they take on dramatic roles, they're so good. Why do funny people make great dramatic actors?
Oh, you know, there's that old saying, like, comedy is tragedy plus time. So all you do is tweak the timing, and if you're a comedian, or a comedic actor, you have an impeccable sense of timing. There's so much in timing.
Yeah.
And I do think that one of the reasons why humor is so like ubiquitous and a part of everything all the time is because we need it, and
Right.
we need it because it's kind of like the balm or the magnifying glass on the
Mhm.
bumps and bruises and wounds of like being alive and like trying to figure things out. And um and so even though comedy is kind of like relieving that pressure or like easing these moments in life, you have to have a real um uh close relationship with those feelings
Right.
and really understand them to be able to bring these things to light. And so I do think that truly fantastic comedians have that, dramatic or whatever, those more grounded performances just in them if they want it. If
Yeah.
it is, of course, very vulnerable. Obviously, I'm not a comedian, but like I'm someone, we use humor as a defense mechanism when things get difficult or when things get vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so it is, it's not like so easy. You have to go to that like earnest, vulnerable space, and you are kind of working against your instincts to um
Yeah.
make it funny or make it light or diffuse the vulnerability or something. And so I do think like if you are a comedian and also willing and wanting to get into that
Mhm.
like exposed space, then like
Yeah.
it's
It's
there for
perfect.
you. But it's, yeah, it's intense.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you have somebody like Ed Helms who's so quick on his feet, and you have such a good script that you wrote, was he, improvising a lot? Did you allow that, or did you mostly just stick to your script?
We stuck to the script a lot because, like you said, very truncated shooting period. But like, obviously there was always a little bit of riffing. There's some really beautiful, lovely moments that came from improv in the script, and also some very funny moments that came from improv. The receipt moment,
Yeah,
but do you
yeah,
have a receipt, that came from an improv between the three of them. And
yeah.
um, there's some stuff in the group therapy, like little light improvisations between Ed and Patty that are like supporting
Mhm.
the scene. And in the trailer, there's like, oh, I just gave him a podcast. It's about Reaganomics. Like that's all Patty,
Yeah.
and there was this really nice moment in the prior to the baby shower where they're having that conversation, like, you seem off, and like, what is it? And we were saying the lines were originally swapped. And so that Matt was one saying like, oh, I guess it's hormones or whatever. And
Mhm.
we were going back and forth, and it was like the same energy, but Ed was saying like, there's something, it feels strange to me for Matt to be saying this. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And so we just talked about it, and then we're like, well, let's see what it's like if we swap the lines and you each say the other person's lines. And it was so beautiful. And so like there was improv like that as well, like improv within the script, and moving certain things around to make it more connected to the characters they were building.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Now, I want to ask you what something that struck me as I was watching this movie is it really raises the question when you have a surrogate, how close do you become to this person or should you become to this person? Because as we see in this movie, Ed's character, Matt, he's not married. He doesn't have anybody, he's got his brother and his parents and whatever, but he does he overstep is what I'm basically asking. Like, what do you think about that? And Patty's reaction, because I don't want to give anything away in the interview about how they develop their relationship, but it makes you think about that. Like, how close should these people really be when they're carrying your child? You know what I mean?
I do think that in this story of Matt and Anna, the thing that happens kind of in the second trimester is that their relationship, like, and experience of each other steps out of that dynamic and that relationship. And so that is, I don't want to say like a happy accident, but
Mhm.
that is a product of who they are, not the circumstance that's brought them together. So the circumstance brings them together, and then it just so happens that what each of them is bringing to the table and who each of them are in their own lives and in the world is clicking into a space, an open space
Yeah,
in the other person. And
yeah,
so like I don't think that generally surrogates are like
yeah,
palling around, and there's a lot of discussion of boundaries in the movie. But then, like I said, fairly quickly, you know, they're talking less about the boundaries between, you know, father to be and surrogate, and more about the boundaries of Matt and Anna. And
right.
so there's a step. I wouldn't consider this film like a handbook for how to be with your surrogate.
No, 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 for sure
Yeah.
not. But it makes you think. It does make you think. There's no question about it. So now that this is going to be a huge success and everybody's going to be wanting you to write for them, what do you have next?
I have some TV things in the mix, some
Good.
currently secret TV things, and and I have a couple of film thoughts happening uh, as well. Nothing I can quite talk about. I
Okay,
feel
I
like
tried.
as when I talk about things before I make them,
I know.
it relieves the drive, and the ink is not dry on my television things, otherwise I would blab about that, but, I
Okay.
don't wanna jinx anything.
That's okay. I'll be looking for your name. No problem. Well, you did an awesome job writing and directing this film. It really, I've told so many people about it and I really, really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for your time today, Nicole. I really appreciate it. And
Thank
best
you.
of luck with everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks
You're
for your support. Thank you.
welcome. Anytime. We'll speak to you again soon. Take care.
Okay,
Okay.
bye.
Bye bye.